Hey folks, welcome to week 10. This week we are continuing our discussion of language, and we will be focusing on or honing in on your big signature project for the course, which is the literature review. Now, I posted a link to that last week, but the link unfortunately didn't work. Apologies for that. So this week I'm going to give you some direction on that literature review, which is the first thing I want you to review the guidelines for. You'll notice that works now. Hooray! You'll be able to understand, hopefully, a little more what you're being asked to do. Now, at the beginning of the semester, I pointed out that we would be looking at a conversation that's happening about language and the human experience, looking at the question, what role does language play in shaping our species on the level of individual and group identity, relationships, communities, environments, knowledge, and etc. And all of the things that I've had you read thus far and the discussions that we had have been geared toward exploring this question from a variety of angles. And we've looked at what story makers have said about language. We've looked at what some scholars have said about language. We've considered what some scientists have said about language. And we'll be looking those last two again this week, scholars and scientists on language. But for the literature review, your goal is to synthesize the ideas of the story makers, the scholars, and the scientists. So you'll be synthesizing what they've said about language and the human experience. The literature review, you'll do that by offering summaries of the different things that these scholars, scientists, story makers have said, and then you'll bring them together into what they all sort of speak to about, again, language and the human experience. So here again, you'll review and synthesize the main threads that make up this conversation in a 5 to 6 page essay. Now, this page count does not include the references or the works cited pages or the title page. It's just the body of the essay. So again, the things that I'll be looking for, that you've got, that you've done your documentation properly, that there's an adequate amount of in-text and end citations, that you've introduced the topic. So you want to start off with your introduction, of course, introducing the broad topic that we've been discussing and that you'll be reviewing in the literature review. And then you'll move through the conversation. You, again, can summarize the writers that we've been discussing and bring their ideas together, sort of play them off of each other. So Toni Morrison says this, while Leslie Marmon Silko says this, and you can compare and contrast their ideas a little bit as you go through and review the conversation that's taking place, all the while trying your best to maintain an unbiased position. So again, that's what you'll be doing, is you're holding up these ideas from the story makers, the scientists, the scholars against each other, and you're looking at where their ideas overlap, what they say that's different from each other, and synthesizing those into the broader conversation that seems to be taking place. So again, like I said, you can do that. Start off with an introduction, and then where you present the main ideas, and then you'll move through in the body of the essay, looking at how the ideas of these writers play off of each other and how they overlap each other. And then in your conclusion, you'll pull all of those things together. So hopefully that makes sense. That gives you a good understanding of what I'm looking for as you go through, when you turn in the literature review. So this week, I've got something for you to read and annotate by Paul J. Zak, Why Inspiring Stories Make Us React, the Neuroscience of Narrative. So we're looking at the effect of narrative stories on the brain, and the video that I have you watching, it takes up the same thing, empathy, neurochemistry, and the dramatic arc. So why stories affect us, and we'll be looking at that in the level of the brain. Now that's what your discussion for this week will actually take up, the neuroscience of narrative. This week in the discussion, I'm asking you to do something a little differently. After you've read Zak's article and then watched the video, I want you to write at least 2 questions in response to those. And then I want you to post both of those questions at the top of your initial reply and pick one of those questions and respond to it in a post of between 150 and 200 words. So you will be writing the questions this week, and then you'll respond to one of your own questions. So you'll be taking charge of the discussion this week. I want you to post that by midnight Thursday, and then your responses by midnight Saturday. Now, another thing I've got you doing for the week is just some summaries in preparation for your literature review. You'll take the things that we've read so far this semester, summarize 4 of them, and then you'll submit that here in this assignment window. And that's all I've got for you for the week. If you've got questions, please feel free to let me know. My inbox is always open.